Would you look at that? It's March. Unless we posted this video a little bit early, in which case it's probably still February. But either way, March 2024 is a period of time that will happen at some point. And when it does happen, a bunch of video games are probably going to come out during that time period. These are their stories. And by stories, I mean release dates and brief synopses. As always, a friendly reminder that we do our very best to be as comprehensive and accurate as possible when making these videos every month, but mistakes and omissions do occasionally happen. Last month, I started the video by saying it was February, which eventually became true, but not when we published the video in late January, as a bunch of you little smartasses were quick to point out. Meanwhile, some more of you slightly larger smartasses pointed out that we forgot Banisher's Ghosts of New Eden, which is a narrative action RPG set in fantastical ye olde colonial times, which was received pretty well when it dropped on February 13th for new gen and PC. One guy said we forgot about banisters, and I think he either meant banishers or he's a building inspector, in which case last month's video was probably not up to code. Hope nobody got hurt. Anyway, here's what's coming out in March, a month that will at some point happen. On the 1st, on Xbox Series and PC, there's Captain Velvet Meteor, the Jump Plus dimension, which looks like a tactical adventure game that somehow intersects with characters from the Shonen Jump manga magazine that hit Switch last year, by which I mean 2022, because I still don't know what year it is.
What year is it?
Still in the 1st, on new gen and PC, there's the Mobius machine, which is a neat-looking puzzle platformer starring a chunky little spaceman who kind of reminds me of Tom, the robot who hosted Toonami on Cartoon Network a million years ago. Remember Tom? Go take some ibuprofen because you're probably old. On March 4th, the Thaumaturge hits PC, and I think this is the 3rd time I've said this game is coming out in one of these videos, but it keeps getting delayed. It's a tactical RPG set in turn-of-the-century Warsaw that has you summoning demons and making morally gray decisions, so sort of like a more depressing, historically accurate Persona. Sure, why not? On March 5th, Expeditions, a Mudrunner game, hits everything, which is a more exploration-based spin on the truck sim. It's either going to be like Death Stranding except with a truck instead of Norman Reedus, or given the variety of objectives, a slightly more arcadey, playful alternative to SnowRunner simulation like Forza Horizon compared to Motorsport. Either way, sign me the truck up because I want to do winch stuff. Meanwhile, if you and 3 friends would like to be terrified together, the Outlast Trials lets you squad up for some cooperative survival horror, and that's a prequel to the last 2 Outlast games, and that's arriving on early access on Steam and also coming to all the Xboxes and the PlayStations. If you'd prefer to get creeped out all by your lonesome, a day later, Reveil comes to everything but Switch, which is a first-person psychological horror that'll have you solving plenty of puzzles and maybe getting chased by a big puppet. Looks creepy. If you'd like some survival without the horror, assuming you're not scared of bears and cold weather and other terrifying things from Mother Nature, there's also Winter Survival, which looks kind of like a first-person Gary Paulson novel simulator, but you have more than just a hatchet, and you don't have to compete in the Iditarod. That hits Steam Early Access on the 6th. On the 7th, as Dusk Falls drops onto PS4 and PS5, and this is that narrative adventure game that looks like it's running on the Photoshop oil paint filter engine and was formerly an Xbox console exclusive thanks to Xbox Game Studios co-publishing it. Aside from my wisecracks about the art style, this was received pretty well, so it's good to see it getting a wider release on other platforms. Still on the 7th, MetaQuest and PC VR get The Pirate Queen, a forgotten legend which gives you an immersive history lesson about Shang-Chi, who did her fair share of plundering in the South China Sea in the 19th century and most recently made an appearance on Our Flag Means Death. For any PC players feeling like they don't have enough isometric fantasy stuff to click on in a turn-based fashion, well, good news, because Zoria, Age of Shattering is here to let you do exactly that, while you explore the whimsical titular realm of Zoria and do all sorts of tactical squad-based stuff along the way. Speaking of RPGs in fantasy settings, on the 8th, Vanillaware is back with Unicorn Overlord, which sounds like a cannabis strain, but it is in fact a dank hybrid of tactical combat, overworld exploration, and the studio's trademark painterly aesthetic. That's on both PlayStations, Xbox Series, and Switch. That same day, WWE 2K24 throws its hat, or maybe its entire body, or maybe somebody else back into the ring. As you'd expect, it features all your favorite superstars, and probably a few that you hate, though there are also some noticeable omissions due to complicated real-world political reasons. But hey, on the bright side, hot on the heels of his appearances as a singing manta ray in TMNT Mutant Mayhem, and as a member of the Zodiac Council in J-Lo's musical autobiopic, Post Malone will also be playable as part of the season pass for reasons that remain unclear to me. That's on everything but Switch. Talk about post-launch content. On March 12th, passing by, a Tailwind journey brings some quaint 2D puzzle platforming among the clouds to Nintendo Switch and PC. If you'd rather blast some Rebel and/or Imperial scum in a city among the clouds, you can do so high above the planet Bespin and on a slew of other iconic maps in the Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection, which is exactly what it sounds like, and it's coming to everything. If you know what a ZX Spectrum is, you might have heard of Jeff Minter, and even if you don't understand a word I just said, you can learn about both those subjects in Llamasoft, the Jeff Minter story, which is both an interactive documentary on the prolific British game designer, but also a collection of 42 psychedelic games spanning his career. That's on everything. On March 14th, also on everything, is Highwater, which will have you exploring an isometric waterlogged post-apocalypse and engaging in some tactical turn-based puzzle combat. If waiting your turn sounds boring and you'd rather just flail around wildly and hit people in the face with improvised melee weapons in real time, Paint the Town Red VR turns the hit slapstick voxel-based first-person brawler into a fully immersive experience that will probably result in a few broken lamps and maybe some real-world injuries. That's on PSVR 2, MetaQuest, and PC on the 14th. On the 15th, Outcast: A New Beginning hits new gen and PC. The original Outcast has the claim to fame of being one of the first 3D open worlds, even predating GTA 3 by a couple of years. The Outcast franchise, if you can even call it that, hasn't gotten a new installment in 25 years, aside from a 2017 remake, so it'll be interesting to see how this one is received. That's on PC and new gen. If you are constantly pissed off that Harvest Moon doesn't have mechs or that MechWarrior doesn't have farming, well, you should probably talk to a professional about that. But also, I have great news. Lightyear Frontier is the best of both worlds, letting you farm rutabagas and kumquats from the comfort of a giant robot suit. That's on Xbox Series and PC. If you'd prefer being in the outfield to being out in the field, MLB The Show 24 drops that day as well, letting you do baseball stuff to your heart's content on your console of choice. And if you're constantly pissed off at the idea of a former PlayStation exclusive series going multi-platform, that's also worth talking to a professional about. But if it's any consolation, the rhythm-based action game Hi-Fi Rush is also coming to PS5 that day as well. This is another Xbox-published former console exclusive that is now able to reach a wider audience, which is great, if you ask me. I don't know, maybe that's a controversial opinion, that it's good if more people can play games. Like, if the game can be played by more people, that means that more people, just statistically speaking, are having fun, assuming it's a fun game, which Hi-Fi Rush is fun, so I don't know. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I don't know. What kind of person doesn't want other people to have fun?
Nothing for you!
Anyway, by March 20th, we'll be on the sunny side of daylight savings, but if you need some solitary gloom, Alone in the Dark is finally hitting PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. If you haven't been keeping track, this is a reimagining of the survival horror classic that returns to the classic creepy Southern Gothic mansion from the first game, but will be telling an all-new tale, starring TV's David Harbour and Jodie Comer. On March 21st, Horizon Forbidden West Complete Edition hits PC, which is great for PC players who want to explore a big, huge, beautiful open world, but hopefully also means we get some weird-ass PC mods that replace the robot dinosaurs with Thomas the Tank Engines, and replaces Aloy with Waluigi or Bart Simpson or whatever, and replaces all of her dialogue about climbing stuff and picking up cups with Macho Man Randy Savage quotes. Oh yeah!
I want some fried sugar! I want to go on the yard work simulator!
Speaking of Bart Simpson, if you'd like to recreate a classic Simpsons gag, you can do so in Lawn Mowing Simulator VR on the Quest. Why do real yard work when you can just do fake yard work with a thing on your head? Because video games are fun. March 22nd is undoubtedly the biggest game release day of the month, and we've got a trio of major games dropping. For starters, there's Dragon's Dogma 2, the long-awaited sequel to Capcom's criminally underrated 2013 open-world action RPG, which hits new gen and PC. From what we've seen, this one doesn't reinvent the wheel compared to the original, but it looks extra slick because it's now in the RE engine. You'll still be wrangling a posse of AI-controlled companions called pawns, who shout weird stuff at odd times, and climbing on big monsters. This time around, though, it sounds like they're leaning even more into the Shadow of the Colossus influence, with even bigger beasts and bad guys waiting to clobber you because you're trying to climb on them. For anybody who's counting down the days till Elden Ring's DLC drops, this could be a good way to pass the time. Then again, depending on your playstyle, you might do better off with Rise of the Ronin, which is another big fat open world action RPG from Team Ninja, the folks behind the Neo games and Wolong Fallen Dynasty. So, you know, if you like the idea of wandering off in any direction in search of an ass kicking, this will also likely deliver. And of course, if you don't like the idea of having your ass kicked at all, Princess Peach Showtime looks like a nice laid-back adventure for players of all ages, giving Mario's main squeeze the spotlight for a change and letting her don a variety of cool costumes that give her cool powers, because it's a video game. Ever wish that Peach would ditch the princess crap to master the deadly arts of ninjutsu? Well, you're in luck. That is on Nintendo Switch, because of course it is. And a day later, if you've ever wanted to experience the existential terrors of Wisconsin, you can do exactly that in MADiSON VR, which is now on PSVR 2. I'm just kidding. To my knowledge, this game has nothing to do with the capital of the Badger State, but everything else I said is probably accurate. On March 25th, SENTRY will be leaving early access on PC. This is an indie FPS where you've got to defend your spaceship from, wait for it, aliens. By, yup, you guessed it, shooting them in the face, but you can also lay traps and set up turrets and use environmental destruction against them. Get out of here, you aliens. Well, it's technically a sequel to The Stick of Truth and The Fractured Butthole. South Park Snow Day looks to be a very different experience, swapping the 2D turn-based single-player RPG for some real-time multiplayer action in 3D that is on new gen, Switch, and PC. On the 28th, Pepper Grinder comes to Switch and PC, which is a cute Devolver-published indie platformer whose piquant pirate protagonist uses her grinder arm to burrow through the levels, which adds some depth to the gameplay when you really drill down. Can you dig it? And on that note, I think we did it. Those are March 2024's biggest game releases. If you want an even better way of keeping track of what games are coming out, you know, other than a video where a man in a dumb shirt yells bad puns and release dates at you for like 9 minutes straight, you should check out IGN Playlist. It's like Letterboxd or Goodreads, but it's for video games, so you can make all sorts of lists like what you've already played, what you're currently playing, what you want to play, or completely weird arbitrary ones like JRPGs where you can ride segways, released in the month of February 2024. I made that one. Anyway, just use your fingers or thumbs and go to ign.com/playlist, or use your magical camera cyberphone and scan this cool QR code. And on that note, I'm out of here. I'm terrible at self-promotion, but if any of you want to see me more than once a month, I host IGN's weekly PlayStation show Beyond, which you can catch on IGN or on the IGN Games YouTube channel, which is a different YouTube channel from the one that you're watching this video on if you're watching it on YouTube. Long story. Anyway, let us know in the comments if we forgot something, screwed up, or otherwise wronged you in any ways, and tune in next month for my excuses about why it's not my fault and also why I'm sorry. See you then.